What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me again. This is, of course, one of my offline videos. We're just going to jump right into it. These are very short. They're typically just my views on current events or situations that are happening. This video is not intended to spark outrage or hate. There are going to be some of you that agree with what I'm saying and some of you that do not agree with what I'm saying. You are welcome to share your views below. Leave a comment, express your viewpoints on the situation. I'm more than happy to read what you have to say and acknowledge it. However, if what you have to say is filled with hate, anger, or rage that is unacceptable for YouTube's terms of service, I will remove the comment or hold it and not allow it to post. So please bear that in mind when expressing yourselves and sharing your own opinions on this very sensitive and very difficult subject. What we're going to talk about today is racism. And the reason that we're going to talk about this specifically is because of what's happening on Twitch and the mass of outrage or confusion regarding some of the terminologies being used that are resulting in people being banned. Particularly when dealing with Caucasian individuals. We already know that racism is a problem when dealing with the minority groups, right? African Americans, Hispanics, Asians. This has been an ongoing pandemic for a long time. And while there is improvements, and there have been continued improvements, whether you see them or not, society as a whole is advancing forward. We are making strides. We are seeing differences. There are still struggles. There are still missteps. There are still things happening. But there is this misconception that because a person is Caucasian, it is unthinkable that someone could be racist or prejudiced against that particular culture. And this has gotten so bad that they are literally teaching this kind of concept in our schools to our children. And this is just not true, right? It's just not the way it is. And so to give you some kind of comparison to what I'm talking about before we jump into more depth here, let me explain a little bit from a different perspective that you may not have considered or you did consider and ignored. If I used a derogatory term or a less than flattering term to describe an individual of African descent, right? What terminology would be acceptable for me to use, right? I cannot paint my face, right? This is considered blackface. It's racist. I cannot use the N-word or a variation of the N-word if I am not legitimately integrated into that society. So if I can't use these kinds of terminology, what terminology is acceptable for me to use? That sensitivity that you're feeling right now, that frustration, okay, equals across the board. It does not make unique to you. It is not unique to you. It is equality across the board. And that frustration you're feeling when somebody is ignorant enough to try to find a terminology to speak of another individual, okay, is a problem. You can see it when you're dealing with a minority, but when you're dealing with a larger majority group, you don't see it. And that's a problem because that's a type of racism in itself, right? So using terminologies like, I can't even say it on YouTube, using terminologies to describe an individual based on the color of their skin is racist. It is derogatory. It is not acceptable. So all these Twitch streamers like Hassan and everybody else and all their mods getting upset that because they said this term to describe a Caucasian individual based on the color of their skin that they got banned and now they're upset. Flip the role. Flip it around. Flip it around. Is it okay to use a derogatory term to describe another individual? Is that okay? If you're using this term to describe the appearance and the color of another individual, is it okay? We already see how quickly we can offend minorities by trying to classify them into a color, right? By trying to do things that negatively impact that culture or that group of individuals based on the color of their skin. So we already see how sensitive we are on this topic. Why would that be different when you're referring to a white individual? Why is that different? It isn't. That's the answer. It isn't different. It is not different, okay? It is derogatory, it is rude, it is unacceptable, and if somebody did the same thing to a minority class of people, it would not be okay. And it should not suddenly become acceptable because this person is not a minority. That's not okay. It is what it is, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter any way you look at it. It's the same thing, right? You can't do it to one group and not another, and then say it's okay because that group is this. That's racism in itself, classified to the core. That is racism. So let's look at a little bit more detail here before I get too far off on topic, okay? Let's jump into our desktop view. All right. So when we look at the classification of racism, we all kind of know the fundamental determinations that make racism what it is, right? To inherently make yourself superior to another race, okay? But some other things that we need to look at is behaviors and attitudes that reflect or foster this belief, such as racial discrimination or prejudice, right? So is it possible for a minority group, okay, and we don't have to use African Americans in this example, we can use any culture we want. Is it possible for that culture to be prejudiced, racist, or angry against whites, right? Just in general, they have too much. There are too many. They're this, right? Is it possible to do that and justify your reaction and your actions to what's happening? No, that's the answer. You cannot make a group selective and then be discriminatory against that group and assume that it's okay. It's not okay. If any of these things were happening to a minority group, we would be up in arms about it. It does not suddenly become okay because you decided to do this to another group of individuals. It's the same thing. And if you want to push your beliefs and you want to fight for equality and you want to fight for equal rights, you have to give equal rights. You cannot place yourself in a position of superiority, which is right here, inherent superiority. You cannot put yourself in that position and not hit the definition of racism. You can't do it. Equality is where it's at. You have to treat people as you want to be treated. And that is harder for some groups, especially minority groups. It's hard because the world is not fair. But you have to stand above this kind of hate. You have to, right? And that includes treating people the way you want to be treated. If your belief is racial discrimination and prejudice against another group of individuals, it does not matter how large that group is or how small that group is. It is the definition of racism, okay? Never mind reverse racism. Never mind all this other nonsense and all these hot topics that are going on. That isn't what this is about, okay? It's not about reverse racism. It's about racism. The word itself, the definition is right here in front of you, okay? Behaviors or attitudes that reflect or foster the belief of racial discrimination or prejudice, okay, based on the color of an individual's skin, okay? Now, you go into further. Well, they have this, right? Same thing. Social, economic, political advantages over another person is systematic oppression. And if you are individually classifying yourself as having these things or separating yourself from society in order to prove a point, you are legitimately being racist. Okay? You are doing exactly what they are doing to you. That's what's happening. So using terminologies to describe an individual based on the color of their skin, like Hassan's mods did, like Hassan did, okay, like is happening all across Twitch right now, is not okay. You want to eat a cracker? You want to sit down and eat crackers? Do it. Twitch isn't telling you no. How ridiculous is that? Right? You want to paint yourself up like a ghost or a shadow? Do it. Okay? Society isn't telling you that that's a problem. You want to paint your face black and then act like that, right? That's racism. You want to use that terminology to describe the color of another individual or degrade them based on that terminology? That's racism. And it doesn't matter how you try to twist it or spin it, that's what it is. If you want equality, you have to give equality, right? And you cannot continue to segregate like this. You just can't. Okay? I hate to say it, but you know, it's one of those things where it's like, can't we all just get along? Well, we can if we put the effort forward. Nothing's going to be given to us. We have to try. We have to make a difference, right? We have to stand above the rest. As a group of individuals, we have to say solidly, we're not going to be like that. This person is treating me this way. It's hard. It's difficult. It's not fair. But we're going to stand above it and do something about it. Okay? I don't need to go and hold up signs and do this stuff. You guys are welcome to do that kind of stuff. You know, do what you believe needs to be done. But what I can say is that I, as an individual, can make an active difference simply by treating everyone the same. Okay? Not by failing to acknowledge the color of a person's skin, not by being what they call colorblind, right? Not by fighting for no race, okay? Not by these things. Just by saying, I'm going to treat this individual the way I want to be treated, and I don't care what their sexuality is, what their gender is, what their race is, what their color is. I don't care. I'm going to treat them the way I want to be treated. That is going to change the entire world. That's all it takes. That is all it takes. And if you are individually choosing not to do this because another person is Caucasian and you don't believe they've earned the right to be treated equally, then you yourself are a problem. We cannot do that. An eye for an eye will make the world blind. It really will. We have to stand above this kind of hate. And I'm sorry, I like Hassan, I like these people, but they are wrong. If you change that terminology to the N word, if you change that terminology to a derogatory term describing a group of individuals, nobody would question what he said. They would instantly ban him and everybody would be okay with it. Nobody would care. But because the individual is Caucasian, it's suddenly acceptable? No, it's not. It's not acceptable. Hate is hate. Racism is racism. There's no justification for it. There's no excuses for it. There's no way to get around it. It is what it is. And we have to come together. We have to stand above this. We have to treat people the way we want to be treated. And that's going to make the difference. It really will. I wish you guys the best of luck. Share your views below. Like, dislike, do what you feel you need to do. I know it's a sensitive topic. I wanted to share my views on it, especially with all this stuff happening on Twitch. I wish you guys the very best. Happy holidays, and thank you for watching. Take care.